Okay, thank you. So that is a bit more based on my experience. As Jill said before, when in my other life I was a crazy owner of tractors, and then I had also my little breeding centers, like my own 4-6 brood mare, plus really all the mare of my clients. And so this is more based about, like, my experience and clearly something about also my background from research. So clearly, like, I try to, I hope I can give you practical suggestion, a recommendation how to manage a maiden mare. And the first question that I put to you is, do you know how long does an habituation period last? So like, or have you ever questioned yourself when, like, this new horse arrives and is facing this new environment, this new group, this new owner, this new everything, like, And then do you remember the broom stuff? So the welfare is the ability to cope with the situation. So how long? Having a stress response is normal. I mean, there would be no horses and we would be no anymore. But how long is normal? How long does an habituation period last? What do you think? 1 day, 2 days, 2 weeks, 1 month? On average. Any idea? Yeah? Without the pens. Without the pens. Like,
It depends on the history of the mare and a lot of other factors.
Let's say without the pens, okay? In a new situation, like, because... no, there is an answer. Yeah? I guess it's the same also for humans. You change apartment, okay? After, it's normal that you get stressed about this. Like, you are relocating, you change. So after a while, you feel kind of more comfortable.
Also ich denke auch, dass es abhängig ist vom Pferd selber, aber dass es vielleicht 3 bis 5 Monate schon geht.
Okay, now let's look at science. Like usually, like, when an animal is able to cope clearly with the stressor, he needs anyway at least 2 weeks. This is the minimum period. I'm telling about minimum period that even when you do an experiment, then you have to make sure that your data are collected after 2 weeks, that you have actually allowed anyway a bit of habituation. Otherwise, we all start with a high level of cortisol, for instance. So, okay, let's start thinking that, like, that basically when I take my racing horses, like, in a new environment, and clearly it's a new environment, and she's facing this stress response that we are normal. And then that's come the history, which is clearly really, really important. And today, possibly, we have not really talked enough about that. Like, you need always to ask the history of this horse. Many horses are bought, and the new owner has even no idea about, the history, the story. How was actually this mare grow up? Was it in a single, in a group, had a good social period, and then, like, often happen. I'm collecting data now on a transport. Basically, it's really common. The 80% of the new owner don't know anything about the horses that they bought. So just when you buy a new horse, just spend 2-3 minutes, ask about the history and the past experience of these horses. Because that is the point. Like, these horses often have started their career really young, and they've been in single boxes, like, for the majority of their time, traveling a lot, racing a lot, changing stables, changing trainer. That is what they have been done for their life. And then one day, they go to breeding. So, like, it's a change of life for them. And that is, that we should try to understand. So it's really a change of life, because when they move from a racetrack, a training center, to a breeding center, it's a huge change. And each change is a stressor, okay? And activate what is a normal stress response, because I wanted to point that we speak a lot about stress, but there is, anyway, nature has created our ability to cope with new situations. So there is a period where, clearly, all the physiology is activated, try to cope with the change. But we need to give time to this animal to cope with a new situation, which is not only, often the group. There is also a new owner, a new stable, a new groom, a new feed, and so many other things that are completely new water. I don't know if, and then clearly, all of these create a situation that takes time. So, and no one also spoke about biosecurity, okay? When you take one horse from one, whatever, environment and come to a new environment, a new stable, clearly there are also new bugs that they need to face, and they bringing their own bug. So, having a period, which is, we would say, in quarantine period, it's not completely wrong from the biosecurity point of view, and also for the horse to start facing a bit the new environment, the new situation, and maybe settle a bit. Maybe I've been also transported for 8 hours or 12 hours, so it's still shaking in the head, so it needs a bit of rest, and be, calming down, restore the effect of the transport. So clearly, this is why I'm from the gradually introduction, Constance today was showing this a nice picture. Okay, the new horse has just arrived, I check with the others. I mean, yeah, you can do that, but then you have also to remember that, it's really a lot to take in for the new horses, and for you, maybe also to take a bit of parasites, a bit of bug, because you did not really observe any quarantine period. But, we had also the nice possible situation where, you keep your horse a bit isolated for a bit. I mean, they've been alone for all their life. You know what I mean? It's not that they really need soon to be introduced. They've been living by themselves for 7 years in single box. We have, you said that in Switzerland, everyone keep at least in single box. So, one day, 2 days more, they don't die for sure. So, but, at least they might start socializing as social, they can look the dynamic of the group, but at the same time, you respect the situation, also the biosecurity. And then, this is why, you also allow them to adjust to the new situation, new water, new feeding. Really would be great if every horse would arrive with a bit of hay and a bit of concentrate, but no one does. No, we know that's what we recommend, but what is the reality that, the new horse arrive from the track, and then it's a new environment completely. So just, and again, there might be a change of temperature. Your horse comes from the north of Europe, or it comes from America, your stallion comes from America, completely different situation. So what we could do in 2022 is help us to new technologies. This is it's called hoof step. That basically, but I'm speaking about this as many others, and also in the we can record the activity, and basically it's normal that at the beginning, these horses, which is changing the environment and facing so many stressors, he's more stressed, okay? It's normal. But, if you have your data and you have your record, then you might see when he starts calming down. He's eating regularly, he is drinking regularly, he's eating enough, he's drinking enough, he moves regularly, or he's still crazy, going up and down, vocalizing, and so on. So maybe having also a new toys. I mean, I like this smart technology because for me are toys. Even heart rate, put in a heart rate monitor and see, like, when it's really calm, then can tell you better when, actually is happy to live in a new environment, and maybe decide to also change the style, go from individual to group. Also because, as I said, those animals have been by themselves for all their life, and often they even be never in a group, because that's the situation of some of these racing horses. Then clearly for reproduction, you might have a problem, because clearly after intensive training, then basically the ovaries stop working, and there are no follicles for a while, and this transition period lasts forever. And they've been in housing, so what you can use if they are outside, you want to use new technology. There is a mask with blue light, which can stimulate with the light a bit longer. They're really common in Australia, where animals are only outside. So, and I want to tell you the story of, these are two of my mares. I might focus only on the first one, Cyprea. She was a trotter, and she was really the super unsocial horse which I ever met in my life. So, and I know, but she could cope with the visual and even grooming other mares, close to fence, but there was no way how you could put a mare inside their territory. She was super, super territorial. Do you remember today I spoke about territorial aggressivity? When she had a baby, I think the only one I could touch the baby was me, just because I saved one of her fall. Because, it's be a vet, be a breeder, you're always the luckiest. So my first fall had an abruption of a bladder, which is really rare, but really happened to my first fall. So clearly I saved. This is why then she tolerated me only for soon after the falling to check the fall was okay, and when I had to do the reproduction. But then, I got Cyprea from a trainer, and then I was curious, so I started asking questions, which clearly I didn't ask when I got it. And basically, she was a single foal when, she was basically bred, and, she has basically not probably have any social period in her life. It was a really small, breeders, only one mare, one foal, and basically Cyprea had absolutely no socialization period. And again, I didn't know about it. And I discovered just because she was fighting and kicking, even mares, they were the double of her, which I told you usually, is the first principle. But this is why my suggestion is ask questions. When you buy a new animal or a new horse is brought to your adjustment, ask about, if you can, ask where it was born, was a small breeding, a big breeding, how the management that they had, and try to connect all the puzzle of today. Because it's not true that, today we spoke about the ideal situation, but there are lots of behavioral problems. Like orphan foals, for instance, they often develop behavioral problems, and they might, have abnormal behavior and history. It's basically the first step of a behavioral visit, but often, too often, we forget about. So, what are my recommendations? So, when you have a new horse, be patient, okay? Give the animal time to face with a new situation, and give them time to find a body, as I said, like, you know, or like, you know, Carstens gave you also suggestion what type of animal you can introduce, but often, you know, if they are close to each other, you can also see there may be like, you know, they try to sniff each other and they start spending time close by, even if they are in a different paddock at the beginning. And again, if you have a really difficult case, like my Chibrea, who was start kicking and biting whatever was close by to her, maybe call an expert. Call someone who is a real equine behavioralist, and then maybe you can have a better, like, you know, management of the animal, as definitely those animals might have a better welfare. And with this, these are my contacts anyway, if you want to reach me in the future. And thank you.
How long did it take until she finally lived in a social group?
Sorry, say again? How long?
How long did it take until she lived in a social group?
She never accepted anyone. No.
Okay, so you gave up on
Yeah, I gave up
her.
on it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, also because I was in the situation where I had not only my own mares, and like, you know, I had to deal with the mare of clients, and clearly I didn't want any accident, which often in a normal situation you also need to compromise, as said. But no, she was living close by, so they were see each other, you know, even make groom, but she had to be in a paddock. And it was funny because she was by herself with the phone, and then there was the group of mares. But I mean, that was the thing.
I would be in worry about the foal of a non-socialized mare, which does live alone and not can socialize with other horses.
Yeah, I mean, I used to anyway win the. I know that probably she was not really good as in general, but like, you know, all yearling were racing. I mean, they won so much, then I think no one really had a problem with their behavior because. And I kept her because basically every year she was pregnant, and all the yearling become racing, even good racing. And at the time, as a breeder, you get also prize as a breeder when you had a good yearling. But anyway, all those after the winning, I put all the yearling together, so they had a social period soon after. But yeah, definitely now. I would probably not put her in breeding at all.